Today I am Corey Olsen, president of Signum University, joined by Faith Acker, the director of our graduate program, because today we have a very much anticipated event. We are launching our new academic mastery program, which is enormously exciting. This is something we've been looking forward to for a long time. We first talked about this at MythMoot. Earlier this year in June, and we are here to share all of the details and show you how everything works here in this new program. So good morning, Faith. How are you?
Good morning, Corey. I'm well.
Good. And
Very excited.
I forgot to apologize for my background. I am currently in a hotel in Janesville, Wisconsin, on a sort of family trip. So I'm not in my normal settings, but you are home in Virginia, right?
I am home in Virginia.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
very, very close. Actually, the academic mastery has not moved very far. I'm only about 10 miles from the home of Myth.
From where you and where we announced it was going to be happening. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I'm a
Cool.
little disappointed that you're in Janesville and not Janestown, because of course we could get the really great science fiction reference there if
Yeah,
you pick
exactly.
your
No,
hotel a little
I
better.
was, yeah, I was, honestly, that's why I picked this hotel. Because like I was picking a hotel on the road, and it made me think of it made me think it made me think of Janestown. Yeah, so that's what totally why I chose this. And then it turns out my wife's cousin actually lives in this town, which I didn't
Oh,
even
that's
discover
amazing.
until I arrived, and my wife told me. Anyway, whatever. But anyway, yes. In my mind, this is the town of Wisconsin that's named after the hero of Canton. But um, anyway, we are joining you today to talk about our academic mastery program. So Faith, first, just kind of what is the academic mastery program? What's the goal here?
Actually, do you want to switch to our first slide?
Sure, I can do that.
So the academic mastery program, if you some of you have heard of it, and I think some of you are waiting to hear more about it, but if you need a little bit of a catch up, the academic mastery program is going to be Signum's newest continuing education program. And Corey and I were talking about this last night, and we decided that we should call this continuing education done right. So,
Exactly.
a lot of times in modern America, when we think about continuing education, we think about the stereotypical basket weaving courses, a course that's kind of simple and not very challenging and doesn't demand. Actually, I think basket weaving is quite a difficult skill.
It
Yeah,
is. It is.
that was quite a,
It's funny that that has been chosen over the years as like the
yeah.
canonical like fluff class. When I agree, like weaving baskets is not trivial.
um, but this isn't your continuing education. I'm going to learn to swim for the first time, although there are elements in which that might be a parallel to this. So this is specifically academically rigorous continuing education, and we already have at Signum the master's program, which we consider very academically rigorous, but not technically continuing education. And we also have our space program, which is continuing education and does have a lot of rigor. But one of the things the space program doesn't have, and that some of our students have been asking for, is evaluations, a little bit more accountability. So
Yeah,
I've gone
to actually
through,
do your own academic work
yeah,
and have accountability for that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I've gone through pieces of several different space sequential modules. I took a little bit of Old Norse, I've taken a little bit of Old English, and I kind of tried to strag along with Greek for nearly a year. But I will say that because of the demands of my life and because of the lack of formal homework and grades, I was not always quite as motivated as I might have been
Hmm.
to get my homework done before I came to class. Um, which is probably embarrassing for me to say as director of the graduate school, but I was trying to keep the graduate school running at the same
Right.
time.
Well, that's the point, though, right? I mean, it's and that's one of the wonderful benefits of space is the
Mm,
ability to take these classes while you're busy doing other things and stuff. And that was always the goal for the space
yeah. Oh,
classes. Space
absolutely.
classes is to enable people to learn stuff on the side for fun, and it's low intensity and everything.
Mhm.
But as you say, lots of people have expressed the desire to go further, right?
Yeah.
For whom the space program either began something or sort of helped to further an interest, but like they want more, right?
Absolutely. So we thought this this program, the new program, the academic mastery, is going to be an in-between program that falls in between the casual continuing education of space, where if you show up not having done your homework, there are no real consequences, which is wonderful, and I appreciate that immensely to my generous preceptors in space. And also the academic, or sorry, our Master of Arts program, where if you don't do enough homework or you don't do it to a particular standard, you end up with an F on your transcript, and that can be kind of demoralizing too. So this is a different program. This is designed to be a program that focuses on mastery, on knowledge. There are going to be assessments. You cannot take this program and not be assessed. But on the other hand, we've got a little bit more flexibility than the master's allows. For reasons like state certification, we can't do certain things with our master's program. They're expecting us to hold master's students to a particular level of rigor. So we want the academic mastery program to be equally rigorous, but a lot more flexible. And so that means there will not be a formal degree or certificate at the end. There will not be grades per se, although we can talk a little bit more about that coming back. Instead, it's going to be you coming in with a goal. Here's something I'd like to achieve that I think Signum can help me achieve. What that goal is can be more or less very flexible, although it's going to need to stay currently within the Signum ballpark.
Right.
So if you come in wanting to learn how to be an electrical engineer, this is not the place for you at this time.
Yes, exactly. Right.
And there may be humanities areas that we can't really support yet, although our dream is to expand into some other humanities areas.
Yeah.
So again, if your goal is to compose a symphony, we probably have faculty who could support you in that, but we don't have the classes and the structure set up to give you the foundation you would need in music theory and orchestration to be able to do that at this point. But 10 years from now, who knows? Maybe we will have a symphony goal in our academic mastery program. So we're starting with things we know. We're starting with Tolkien, imaginative literature, Germanic philology, classical, medieval, and Renaissance literature, and projects that are coming out of those areas as a start. And then we'll see where we're able and how we're able to extend so far.
Yeah. Now, I would just to emphasize that and make that completely clear, right? The big difference, essentially, the core difference between our master's degree program that we've been running for over a decade and this new program is essentially one leads to a degree and the other does not lead to a degree. You will be trained, you will be learning, but you won't get a piece of paper at the end. So like if the piece of paper is what you need, then this new program is going to help you get the piece of paper. But if you want to learn, it will.
Well, it could help you get the piece of paper.
Well, okay.
At some point,
it can provide you skills that you could then apply towards getting a piece of paper. But the courses themselves won't count towards getting the piece of paper. Is the point?
And so one of the things I want to point out that's up on the screen right now is any adult is welcome in this program.
Yes.
So Signum has always had a lot of students who don't come from traditional academic backgrounds. And so it doesn't matter to us whether you have a college degree. Mm-hmm. You can come to this program having graduated from high school and then gone on to spend the rest of your life doing more meaningful things outside of academia. This can be your entry into academia, especially for people who don't have a degree, who just want to take classes but have a little bit more challenge than our space program. So that's another way in which not getting to a formal degree can be very freeing for people who are interested in coming to this.
Yeah, and I would emphasize in response to Shoshana's question there on YouTube, that yes, when we say available to any adult, we even mean adults who live in New York State. It is true that we are restricted based on the bureaucratic laws of higher education, that govern higher education in various states. We are restricted from offering. We cannot accept people from about half the states in the country to our program.
To our master's program.
To our master's program, our traditional MA program. Because again, it's the pieces of paper, it's the diplomas, it's the degrees that are policed by, the government bureaucracies and accreditation systems that govern higher education. This is outside those. So it's and if I could, and Faith will keep me from ranting about this for too long, but the thing that I think is so important here, higher education in general has become totally degree fixated. Like, the whole purpose of higher education is to get and give degree. It's like a marketplace for degrees, right? And I'm not saying that it's all totally cheapened and you learn nothing on the way to it, but if the whole reason, the purpose of degrees, like, degrees were invented in order to give a kind of an external indication of what you've learned, of the skills that you have gained. And that has been kind of warped and twisted around especially over the last few decades, so that now higher education is in extreme risk of becoming mere, like, job training, just like giving certificates towards jobs, essentially. And this state of affairs is, in my opinion, particularly ludicrous when it comes to our subject matters, right? Like, nobody wants to study. It's been my greatest frustration, Shoshana, exactly as you say, people who have wanted to study with us, who want to go deeper and to learn more and to even perhaps publish on their own about Tolkien, about, medieval studies or something like that, but they're prevented by laws which have nothing to do with, no one is doing that. No one has ever gone into medieval studies in order to, like, get the high paying job. Like, that's not why you do it. It's never been why you do it. And so what we have wanted and what we have always striven for is to provide opportunities for people who want to learn, for people who want to who have their own reasons why they want to dig deep into this. And so this new program, because this new program is not going to be giving formal degrees, it's going to be focused just on the learning and not on the degrees. So we are completely freed from that system in that way and can just teach the classes that we want to the people who want to learn them. And I am extremely excited about that.
And that's one of the reasons this is a continuing education program.
That's right.
It's designed to be more flexible, to be free from some of those requirements that we have in states. And I will make a quick note about states. A lot of people have asked us about the list of states that our master's program doesn't allow students from. And that's a list of states that Corey and I have curated and we check regularly based on your state's legislature. Yes. So if you live in one of the states from which we can't accept applications, the best thing you could possibly do would be to write to your senators and your congresspeople and complain about it, because our hands are tied. We legally can't offer you classes while you live in that state because of rules your state has put in place.
Yes. This is, and many of you will know what this means for me saying it. This is not even the fault of the accreditation system. This is all about state legislatures and state laws. And the reason why some are okay and some are not is that some state laws are more reasonable and some are less. Yeah.
But that is entirely a for credit and a degree issue.
That's all about the degrees. It's
making our new program continuing education. Your state doesn't mind if you take a continuing education class in another state.
Yes.
For now. Hopefully that will never change.
Hopefully that will never change. Yeah. Absolutely. So I did want to make sure that we make clear from the start, if getting the degree, like if having the official degree is a thing that matters a lot to you, this program isn't going to be for you, because we're not going to be giving degrees at the end of this. But if what you want is to learn, and if what you want is to train, if immersing yourself in this stuff is your goal, and honestly, I think that's where the majority of our students have always been. Even in our degree program, it's where most of our students in our MA program aren't using their degree in the traditional way, as a qualification for something necessarily. So some do in some ways. There are still ways in which even a graduate diploma in literature can be useful to some people. And more power to everyone for whom that is true. but again, even within our established program, that's not been the dominant purpose for it. And so again, this is totally freed from it. So anyway.
So to kind of build on that and to go back to my bullet points, because I've got a bunch of bullet points.
Okay, yeah.
You won't be getting a degree at the end of this. And I also want to emphasize from the outset that courses in the academic mastery program are never going to be transferable to our graduate degree programs. These are completely separate. Some of the course topics and even some of the course lectures may look really similar. We're going to be sharing some materials between them. But again, for those same legal reasons, we cannot give you graduate credit for any of the courses in the academic mastery program. That doesn't mean if you're somebody who is a educator who needs to take continuing education classes for credit. I know we have some teachers who have taken a single class in our master's program and then used that at their own school for continuing education credit. And I would say our classes are still going to be very rigorous. They're still, for me, going to be graduate level in the academic mastery program. So if there's a course or a module that you think would work for your own personal continuing education goals, that's something probably to take up with your principal or your headmaster or your dean, depending on where you teach, because different schools are going to have different guidelines and rules for what counts.
Yes.
And so the courses might count, but we can't transfer them back and forth with our own academic graduate program just for legal and professional reasons.
Yeah, and that's not even our choice. That is, again, it's a product of the system, right? The way in which our master's program is going to be evaluated both by the state and by accreditors. We have no choice as far as our degree program is concerned, but to keep those two things completely separate from each other.
And so what you'll need instead, what I'd like for anybody who wants to join this program, is for you to come in with a goal. And I made some slides about goals. We don't have to go through those slides. There's some example goals on the website, which we'll give you the link to in a little bit. But your goal can be very specific. One of the goals I thought a student might have coming in is if you're an engineer and you really want to write an academic article about Tolkien, there are some steps you might want to take between being an engineer with a great idea and sending your paper to Malorn. And so we think we can help you with those intermediate steps. So you would have a clear goal. I want to write this paper. You would come in with a timeline, how long you'd like to be able to do it in. Your timeline may need to change. Academic papers, if anybody here has submitted one, they often take 3 or 4 years to get published. So your timeline may need to be adjusted. But if you start with a goal, we can evaluate that and see whether we can actually help you achieve that goal based on the staff and the courses that we have available.
Yeah, absolutely. But as you say, so people with really vague learning goals are welcome. People with very specific project goals.
Your goal might be, I want to take a class on Tolkien every month and write a paper every 3 months, just to keep my brain active in retirement, or even to learn how to write papers.
Right.
There are a lot of different goals. They can be pretty casual. I just want to do as much Old Norse translation as I possibly can. Perfectly acceptable life goal.
Yeah.
And it could be a very specific goal with an end point. And there's a question in the Twitch chat. Will students have access to the library resource? So we are planning on making sure that our academic mastery students can access our library resources. We might be doing a little bit of shifting of how our library looks. The other thing that we'll try to do as much as possible is help you dive into your own local library resources, because sometimes there are resources nearby that might be better than what we can provide to you currently. But we're definitely planning that you'll have all of the all access to all of the Signum resources and databases that our graduate students also enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. And I would emphasize some of the goals that people have might not seem like academic goals. Exactly. Like maybe you're a creative writer and you want to learn, and because of a project that you're working on, you want to learn more about, Viking language and legend and history, and so that would lead you to some goals of stuff that you want to immerse yourselves in. This would also be a great way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are planning to offer some formal creative writing instruction. We don't have those classes in BlackBerry yet, but I'm hoping to have them by mid-spring. So if you're a creative writer and you think all of this sounds great, the other thing I'm really hoping to do is I'm hoping to bring creative writers into community and conversation with academics. So someone who is writing a creative writing or a novel based on Norse mythology might find themselves in a Norse translation class or a Norse literature class alongside people who are writing scholarly articles about those same things. And I think that by having you in conversation with each other, it's going to make the academic articles stronger because you'll have gotten to watch things in practice and think about things from a different perspective. But it will also give you, as creative writers, a different kind of knowledge that is grounded in scholarship and rigor and possibly even the Norse language, as well as creative writing principles of plot and character development.
Yeah.
And story arcs and all of those things. And so another way in which this program is going to be customizable, we're going to start looking at a couple courses on BlackBerry in a few minutes, but you'll notice that a lot of courses will end with something that just says final project. And so a final project for a scholarly student might be that you write a section of the paper that you're hoping to write, or that you apply some principles from that class to something scholarly and write, some kind of formal writing, or even something like an annotated bibliography. But a final project for a creative writer might look more like a creative writing narrative building on some of the themes in that class. So you'll be able to do those things together and to customize assessments in, again, a way that we can't really do in the graduate program without a lot more intentionality, because people like state bureaucrats and accreditors want to know, well, what required essay are you going to have your students write at the end of this module?
Right, right. Yeah, and it's a quick note on the creative writing connection. There have been many people who have been really enjoying our creative writing modules in space. One of the goals of incorporating creative writing in the AM program is to enable people there also in the creative writing classes in space to be able to go deeper and to do more. There has been so much energy within our creative writing community that has grown up in space to want to do more and more and more, so that like during this past year we've been kind of straining the kind of limits and definitions of the space program and allowing that to kind of overflow into the academic mastery program, where we're going to have a setup where people are able to be involved less in sort of casual creative writing discussion groups and more in intensive and more rigorous, training and evaluation and more feedback and all of that kind of thing. It really is one of our goals is to enable our creative writing community to be able to take sort of a step forward, to really accommodate, I should say, the step forward that they've already been making and wanting to make through our space program. And having that, as you say, alongside the rest of our academic offerings and intermingled with that, I think does create a really exciting situation. It's the kind of thing that, as you were sort of implying, the normal bureaucratic rules that govern degree programs and the oversight of degree programs don't encourage the kind of free intermingling of creative and academic study, which I think is ideal both for creative and for academic study. But the people who make rules about how degree programs should work don't like that kind of thing. So it's another thing. It's that, again, the academic mastery program, it will enable us to have much more freedom to mix things together that way.
And the other thing I want to throw in there is one thing that I really want to encourage students to think about is taking modules multiple times, which is not something that we think about in academia
Yes.
very often. But you may want to take Old Norse literature as an academic to get a sense of the scholarship that's been written. And then you may want to come back again and take it as a creative writer and do something more creative with that, building on the same ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And you may also, like, I have taken Old Norse in space, and I had, for reasons of my own that have nothing to bear upon the excellent instructor that I had, I did not learn it quite as deeply as I might have liked to. And possibly if I'd been taking it for a grade, I might have squeaked through a passing grade and been able to go on to Old Norse too. But I would learn it a lot better if I went and I took it a second time and really focused on more of the endings or more of the vocabulary. So if you reach the end of a module and you think, I'd like to try this from another angle, I'd like to do this again, focusing on genders of adjectives, I'd like to do this again, focusing on something different. We really want to encourage you not just to think of a module as a one and done, but to think of what do I need to really internalize, to master this education, to achieve the goals that I have for myself.
Yeah, it really is a totally different kind of mindset from a traditional degree program where you have like a chain of courses set out, right, and you check off the boxes essentially towards the accomplishment of the goal. I mean, it's the way it works. It's the way it's always worked. But instead, again, it's the continuing education mindset, right? The whole point is not to take the courses in order to accumulate the degrees. The point is to learn stuff. So yes, if you feel like, hey, you know what? That was a really interesting module. I would gain a lot from doing it again. Like I'm not done with that. Like I want to do more of that. I want to do that again. I want to think through that stuff again. That is, yeah, it's a great example of something that is in a lot of ways totally counterintuitive because of the way we've been trained to think about school and about courses. And yet I think it will often be very beneficial for folks.
And indeed, if you often at a university, if you take a course twice, they won't count the second time unless you actually failed it the first time.
Right. Yeah. Or
like, you already did that. Why would we give you credit for doing that again?
Take this class again. Or
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool. So I have a question. Some people are one question that Erica was asking on YouTube. Can I be enrolled in both the MA program and the AM program at the same time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll have to have separate accounts. And there's a couple places in which that's a pretty clear division. So if you are a current MA student, you'll have a student account in Goldberry. It's a lot more formal. It will have grades for your courses. The academic mastery program is going to run entirely through Blackberry, which is our continuing education portal. And Blackberry looks a lot different from Goldberry if you don't have an account in there. So your master's graduate faculty will not be able to see your Blackberry classes. So there's a line there. You can tell them. It's not a secret. You can tell your Old Norse instructor in our graduate program that you've taken Old Norse in space. They won't be able to see any notes that were left on your account or how many Old Norse classes you've taken. But we absolutely are very happy to have students in both. The two programs won't communicate with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the same as if you went to your local college and well, you probably can't do this at a local college, but if you enrolled in the welding program and you enrolled in a creative writing master's, your instructors may or may not be able to see those two things depending on how your school is broken down.
Right. As Matt says, what happens in Blackberry stays in Blackberry.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example. Yeah. So students are welcome to be in both. There are separate application forms for both. If you're thinking about Signum, you're very welcome. I will note that the academic mastery program has an application fee, so don't just send applications to both and then see what you feel like. I would really encourage you to look at both of our programs and talk to people if you're waffling about which one you want, especially because you can't transfer classes back and forth between them.
Yeah. And I would emphasize that as well. One of the things, one of the consequences of our designing a program that is very student focused and also designed to be both to encourage and to reward a more intensive investment by students is that we invest more intensely as well. So there are more costs attached to it than there are to the space program, because this is not like, space is all about helping people to find the individual modules that they want. So they get and offering the modules that students want. We do those things too, but we do a great deal of we'll be doing a great deal of individual advising and mentoring, as we're going to be discussing, and the application process itself, to evaluate what it is that you're wanting to do and how and if at this time we can meet your needs and all of those sorts of things like this. It's going to be an investment of multiple people's time even to evaluate applicants. So it's much more intensive in that way. I like Matt. This is Matt DeForest had a really good way of thinking this through. He said traditional degree programs that must follow accreditation rules are system focused. These modules that we're doing are student focused. What do the students need to achieve their goal, rather than what does the system need in order to accurately process and record student progress towards the degrees? Yeah, that's exactly the difference.
I see another question in the Twitch chat. I'm sorry, I don't know who the person's real name is, but it says, will you be committed to taking a certain number of classes within a certain time period? So no.
Yeah,
there will
totally flexible.
be a low a token fee to be in the program and have access to an advisor and a mentor and our library resources. You can pause that fee at any time. So if you want to take a formal leave of absence, you can just say, I want to take a year off, and we'll just pause that fee until you're ready to come back.
Yeah.
But one of the other reasons we want to make this program really flexible is because we have a lot of students who can't quite do a semester commitment to a class at a time. So if you need to come take a class for a month and then go away for 4 or 5 months, especially if you're somebody like a school teacher who has very intensive semesters in the fall and the spring, and then a lot more time. So someone who is an instructor in a school could actually take the fall and the spring off and then come and take 6 or 8 courses in the summer if they wished.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of work, but
That's a lot
if
of
you
work.
wanted that,
But theoretically
somebody who
possible.
wants to just do a course every other month would be welcome to come and do that kind of pace. Somebody who is newly retired and really excited to finally get a chance to do delightful intellectual pursuits, you can take 8 courses a month as long as that many courses run. And we're also partnering with space programs. So if some of your academic mastery courses don't run, you could supplement with space as much as you wanted. We're going to be talking together and working together between space and academic mastery all the way along.
Yeah, that's and again, that's another really fun flexibility that we don't have within the rigorous rules dealt out by government and accreditation bureaucracies. So I know we want to talk through some of the details of how things work and everything, to get into more of the nitty-gritty of stuff.
And we might skip the next slide and go to my third slide.
Sure.
Because I just want to introduce a couple of pieces of terminology that you're going to see.
Great.
So I've divided classes into tiers. There are 3 tiers. You're only going to see 2 tiers today because the third tier is kind of a secret tier. Don't tell anybody. So tier 1 is introductory training classes that are going to give you the building blocks that you need to achieve things. So to go back to my example of the engineer who wants to write a paper in the humanities, you may know that engineers and English students write papers in slightly different styles. use words in different ways.
That has been observed before.
Paragraphs are developed a little differently. I teach a lot of introductory courses here at Signum, and sometimes students who have grown up in the sciences in particular, but even sciences like psychology, are like, what do you mean I need more sentences? I need to explain this more. I gave you the fact. Now
Right.
we're moving on. And so we're going to have some introductory courses. That'll be things like how to write a paragraph in the humanities, how to write a paper or a close reading in the humanities, some citation styles, because engineers and English scholars also use completely different citation styles.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also include things like language basics here. So if you need to learn Latin to achieve your goal, if you need to learn Old Norse or Old English to achieve your goal,
So those are tier one classes also.
yeah, those are all tier one. So
Okay.
anything that's like a building blocks class.
Mm-hmm.
If your class could start with the word introduction, it's probably a tier one. Introduction to writing paragraphs, introduction to Old Norse, introduction to the Latin language. We don't start classes with introduction because one of our faculty members gets very twitchy when 25 courses start introduction to and you can't read the rest of the title. So we've actually tried to have more descriptive titles up front. But if your course could be an introductory course, it's probably a tier one.
Right.
And when you apply, there is a short writing sample. We'll look at the writing sample, we'll look at your goal, and we'll probably say, based on your writing sample, we think you should probably take these introductory courses. There will be an option to test out of them. There'll be a small fee because we'll need to evaluate you in some way, and that's going to be one of our faculty members' time. But if you want to try to test out of a course that we've recommended in the introductory level, you're welcome to try to do that. Tier 2 is what I've called content courses. So this would be a course like Old Norse readings, where you already know Old Norse a bit, but now you're going to practice it by reading in community with other people and have tests on your ability to translate. This would also be a class like basically the equivalent of most of the literature classes that we have in our graduate program, just not our literature classes that are in our grad program. So where you're reading a book and watching some lectures and talking about it with your classmates and writing a paper. You're really engaging with academic content, but you have the basic building blocks you need. You already know how to write a paper, so your instructor is not going to spend a lot of time teaching you how to write a paper. And then tier 3, the closest equivalent I can suggest is that it's kind of like in our graduate program, we have a thesis process. So tier 3 is like your thesis process, but our thesis process, again, is constrained by the limitations of accreditation. It's a
by the rules,
12-week semester. You have 12 weeks to do a certain number of steps towards your thesis. You have 3 of them, and if you haven't finished your thesis within basically 36 weeks plus some time off, you have to retake or you don't pass.
Right.
So this is actually kind of an unlimited thesis process. You'll just pay for a month of mentorship from the person that you think is most useful to achieving your project when you've reached the point where you have enough content. So for my engineer, he starts off, he takes some academic writing classes, he takes a whole bunch of content courses so that he can learn all of the scholarship on his particular topic, or as much as he thinks he needs. And at some point he's going to go, I think I'm ready to try to write the article now. And then we'll match him with this academic specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And every month he might send a couple paragraphs to them. Some months he might say, actually, I don't think I need you this month. I'm going to go work on my own at the library and I'll come back to you in July. He might have a month where he wants to work with a different person who has a slightly different specialist. That's kind of the equivalent of what we do as a second reader in the graduate program. But you could work through 6 or 7 different second readers if you wanted. You could actually rotate to get experience from a bunch of different people, particularly if your topic is really complicated and would benefit. We have some faculty members with a lot of overlapping interests. So you might find that rotating your mentor in those ways is really useful.
Yeah. Now, Mighty Felix was asking if the tiers are priced differently. Tier 1 and Tier 2 aren't really priced differently. But I would say the rule of thumb here is that the pricing is always based on the amount of time that our people need to invest.
Somebody else is going to be putting in.
Yeah, we've we don't, we're just trying to meet our payroll at Signum, financially speaking. Like, that's the goal. And we want to be able to pay people for the work that they're doing. So for things like Tier 3, right, it's going to be different because it's, people are going to be working individually at different paces and stuff. But anyway, it's always just like, again, the rule of thumb, it's always about how much time is going to be invested by our folks.
The other thing that's going to probably be new for people is that some courses are priced differently within individual tiers.
Right.
So the pricing variation is not from one tier to the next. The pricing variation is each course has its own particular price. So we can look at this a little bit later, but an example I would give is that in the languages sector, we have an Introduction to Old Norse class, and that's been broken into 2 modules. You're going to hear class is like a big, what would be the equivalent of a semester long, basically, in our grad program.
A full course of studies of some kind.
Now, to incorporate different schedules, different amounts of flexibility, we've broken a lot of bigger topics down into modules that are more like a space module. So a lot of them will be 1 month long. Some of them will be 2 months long. I think the creative writing program has some ideas for courses that will be every other week for 3 months,
right.
Just to give more time to write and to process and absorb in between. And so the Introduction to Old Norse module in the academic mastery, there's 2 7-week modules, and those are going to be 3 tokens each because it's a longer course. But then there are some intermediate Old Norse readings modules, and those are only 4 weeks, so there are only 2 tokens each. So the pricing will vary by course, but the price will always be listed on the course. And most of the time, that's going to be proportionate to how much time you're getting. So if it's a 7-week course, it's probably going to cost 3 tokens, unless it's a huge grading burden. If it's a 4-week course, it's probably going to be 2 tokens.
Right.
And those will usually include a bonus, shouldn't say bonus, like a finals week.
Right.
So a 4-week module is usually going to be 4 weeks of instruction, and then a finals week where you might have a live instruction, you might have a paper due, but you'll still have access to your instructor while you're working on your paper or your project.
It does mean that while space, so they'll be like space modules, but space modules tend to be, with some variations, mostly contained within the calendar months.
Yeah.
The AM modules are not going to be some of them will be longer than 1 month, some of them will be 5 or 6 weeks, some of them will be, that's the way that is likely to work down. And as you've heard Faith mentioned, it's going to be on BlackBerry, and so the same tokens that you purchase to enroll in space modules are going to be usable for this too. So so the tuition comes in through token purchases, just as through space. Again, the rates are different because even 2 1-month modules, one in space and one in the AM program, the AM program one is going to be demanding much more time from your preceptor, because your preceptor is going to be grading and giving lots of feedback as well, which doesn't happen in the space modules. So, and
the other thing I'll add is the workload is going to be different. So I don't know if there's going to be a graduate level intensity tag in BlackBerry. It wasn't up last night, but I know that they've been working really hard on BlackBerry overnight, so it might be in there this morning. But I think the top for a space class is like 8 hours outside class per week. These are probably going to be 6 to 12 hours of work for a student, because you'll have lectures to watch, you'll have discussions to attend, you'll have required reading to complete, and you'll have some kind of a writing assessment. So it will be kind of the weekly grind of a master's level class. But that's also a weekly grind for your instructor too. So your instructor is also going to be watching videos and reading those books and grading your work. It's probably double the work of a space module for your instructor and for you.
Right.
So I don't want to say it's not something to be entered lightly, but enter it with the awareness that it is not going to be a space module if you're used to space modules.
Which is the whole purpose why we started this program, because people keep wanting more and more. I mean, it's been one of the primary dynamics that we've seen over the first 3 years of the space program is pushing upwards and wanting more and wanting more investment. And so yeah, it is important to notice that you're getting more and more will be asked of you with these classes.
Yeah.
As I mean, that's why we've done it. The space courses still exist. Like, we're not changing anything, right? One can still do the sort of lower impact, like lower life impact space classes if that's where you want to be. That's we want to be able to accommodate all of that stuff, all of those different options. Maureen is asking if will it be structured like space where you're in a module with a group of other students. Yes. I mean, obviously there will be some, like in
tier 1
3,
and tier 2 will be structured
exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
Tier 3, we're still playing with tier 3 because I think student needs are going to be different. And some of our faculty have some really exciting ideas for accountability and feedback.
Right.
Smaller classes where you might have a cohort, which is actually something we're piloting in the master's program for our thesis students this year, is to try to bundle them into cohorts so they have community throughout. But tier 1 and tier 2 will look a lot like hyper rigorous space classes.
Right.
Really hyper rigorous, largely hybrid space classes.
Right.
Or if you have done our graduate program, they'll look like smaller chunks of our grad program, because many of those courses are based on our grad program lectures.
Yeah.
And then our faculty have revised them into kind of 1-month modules that can be done still with live discussion.
Yeah.
You still watch the videos that wonderful people created. Sometimes 10 years ago. And you'll
sometimes back when they had hair, yes. Yes. So one of the reasons for that, right? I mean, and I would say for people who are familiar with our graduate program, it's going to be one of the differences is that we are working to make the AM program more flexible. Again, with the rules and restrictions that are in place for the degree programs, it's hard for us to be as flexible with that as we would like. It's been for a long time. We've always been aware of when our students in our MA program have had difficulties in committing to and persevering through an entire full regular semester because they're working other jobs and life happens, and it's like a 3 to 4 month commitment, and sometimes that things don't work out to make that easy to execute, no matter what your intentions are. And so we're definitely availing ourselves of the opportunity to build in more flexibility, and that's why we're doing it more in the more space-like modules rather than the more traditional semester length courses. Okay, cool. Now, Eric Scorsone on YouTube, one of the things that I would emphasize is, as far as like the sequencing of courses, like, yes, again, tier 1 courses are designed to be things that will help you do tier 2 courses. But as far as your actual plan, we're not going to be imposing rules. Like, we're going to be working with each student individually to make a plan for how you want to do things.
I will add on that I went to the graduate faculty, because our opening classes are all going to be taught by members of our graduate faculty, so that that you're getting world-class instruction from really established, knowledgeable scholars who are really familiar with our programs and our people and our mission. We will probably be opening that up, I hope, to a broader base. But to start, we started with the graduate faculty. And I said, and this is so hard for them, I said, imagine that you didn't have any constraints.
Yes.
How would you teach this course differently? You can do whatever you want with Old Norse readings. And it's very hard to get people who have been in academia for over a decade not to think in terms of semesters.
Right. Yeah,
so there were a couple times when I went back to a faculty member and I was like, well, you've done this, you've just split the semester into half, but is that really the best way to teach this course? Can we make it smaller modules? Can we make it more focused modules? Can we shift things around a little bit? One thing that I noticed happened is we took a lot of the lecture series from our grad program, and 12 weeks is a pretty tight class. A lot of instructors, given that flexibility, turn them into 4 months of modules. So you actually get this leisure of discussion and learning and education along the way. There are a couple modules, and we can start looking at some of the individual ones in Blackberry. There are a couple modules where it says you can take the modules in this larger course in any order you want, but we recommend this sequence.
Yeah.
And so we'll probably be kind of guiding you to that sequence. But that doesn't mean, like, there's a course in there that's contexts of Tolkien. Let's say you hate The Hobbit. Sorry, can I say that on a Signum channel? Let's say you hate The Hobbit, and you realize that the module that's exclusively The Hobbit, and you go, like, I don't really want to take module 2 because I'm so tired of The Hobbit and scholarship on The Hobbit. I want to just go off into space and listen to the music of Tolkien for a month instead. Like, absolutely, you can skip that module. If there's something that's really critical that you've missed, hopefully they'll tell you, you might miss this book, this text, this something else. And you might find that other students are referring to ideas that you've skipped because you missed that module. Obviously, with something like a language, you want to do the language modules in a particular sequence.
It's probably not advantageous to be like, you know what, I really don't like the imperative mood. I just don't. So I'm skipping that. Yeah.
I don't want to take the month on verbs.
Exactly. Exactly. Who needs that?
So we do have a couple that we've recommended to be taken in a sequence. Another word that you'll see a lot in Blackberry is the word cluster, which means here are 4 related modules that have come from similar places. You might want to take all 4 of them. It doesn't matter what sequence you take them in. And we've tried to be pretty clear with our language, like, we recommend this sequence, but it's not required, or you really ought to do this sequence because you need the foundational things from the first piece.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you want to poke around in Blackberry?
Let's show them Blackberry. So actually, can we go back and show them the web page so that everybody knows what's on the web page first?
Yeah. So on the web page. So if you go to signumuniversity.org, right? You go to classes, graduate level studies, and here we are, the academic mastery program, right? So so academic mastery program, and so we've got your intro video here, Faith. Okay, and then there's an extensive. This is the most impressive.
I'll just add, like,
FAQ
don't
section.
Click the apply here button until you've read the page, because it does cost a token. Like, read the page and make sure it works for you first.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, but anyway, so there's lots of questions will be answered here in our FAQ section, which is pretty awesome and pretty intense here. Okay, so that's the homepage. But if you go to Blackberry, so this is blackberry.signumuniversity.org, which will be familiar to anyone who's taken space classes or registered for one of our events. Now,
and can I also add, Blackberry is free to sign up. So if you're watching this and you haven't signed up, I would sign up today. It doesn't cost anything to sign up for Blackberry. And also, if you sign up today and it's a first time, you'll get a coupon for a $75 token, which if you decide you want to apply is a lot cheaper than a regular token. And you could, if you decide you don't want to sign up, you can still use that towards a space class.
Yeah. Awesome. So here in Blackberry, we have a welcome to the AM program section here within Blackberry, and more stuff is going to be coming to fill in some of this as well. But yeah, so here you can get an explanation. Here's an explanation of our tiers, and our initial modules listed here. Ooh, and the current and upcoming AM modules. Fun.
So we have about 6 full courses right now. I'm expecting that to expand. I'm expecting that to double within the next 3 weeks. And then all of those larger courses, whether they're a cluster or a series, those are Blackberry words, have been broken down into smaller modules. So even if you don't apply today, if you're kind of just trying to feel things out, if you can scroll down a little bit, Corey.
Yep.
You'll see a lot of buttons on this page that say add to wish list. And so anybody can add well, you got some non-public theirs too.
Yeah, sorry,
uh,
I'm an admin.
that's
So,
okay.
yeah.
No, you're an admin.
Apologies.
So anybody, if you think basic MLA citation sounds like the most exciting thing you have ever heard,
I
you
mean,
can
come
click
on.
add.
Like, it's hard to avoid the add to wish list button on that one, right?
But there's two different places. So if you're on this page where you're just scrolling through our list of modules, you can add any individual module to a wish list.
Yeah.
And if you'll go ahead, Corey, and click on any module that you see that's not a series.
Okay.
So don't click on grammar citing and humanities writing because that's a series.
Okay, I'll do Concerning Monsters and Fairies.
Concerning Monsters and Fairies is perfect.
Okay, Concerning Monsters and Fairies.
So Concerning Monsters and Fairies is one part of a four-part cluster. Actually, Dr. Vaccaro said it would be better as in sequence, but you can take it as a cluster. So if you'll scroll down a little bit more, if you think all 4 modules in that cluster sound amazing, you can also just add the whole series to your wish list.
Add the series, right.
So there's an add series button on the page for each individual module. If you only want one module, you have to do it from that first page. That's the list of all the available modules.
Right.
And then you can add anything you want to an individual. This course is also a candidate course. So it's one of the courses we'd love to offer in the first round if we have students who are excited about, you just want to jump into content courses. This is up for voting right now. So if you want to apply today, and as soon as you get accepted, you can vote for this course. I mean, you can vote for the course anytime you want.
So are the ones when you click on the Welcome to the AM program, these courses here are all available for voting, right? These initial ones?
I think these are all, those might all be. I think those 4, but if you refresh, they change. So I'm not going to promise
okay.
that they're available for voting.
Right.
The ones that are listed as February, I think are. If you'll go scroll down again on the main page.
Yeah. Gotcha. February. Okay.
I think everything listed under February is available.
It has the blue candidate
after
button.
them.
Right. Okay, so we should do a little bit of explanation here. Now, of course, those people who watched the session with me and Rob last week, Rob Goslin, talking about space and how that works, will already be familiar with sort of the BlackBerry system and how this works. But let me explain the basic concept for people who are new to this. What we're trying to do in the academic mastery program, as we do in the space program, is to simultaneously offer live synchronous classes where you are together with classmates and a teacher in live sessions on a regular basis, but also to have those be essentially on demand to make sure that we're actually meeting student demand. So if they're listed as candidate modules, that means we are prepared to offer this. Like, we are prepared to run these classes, to run any and all of these classes in February, but they're not yet confirmed because first students have to sign up for them. Like, if students don't sign up, or if only like 1 or 2 people sign up for them, then that's not going to be enough to run a course, right? So we need to get a minimum number of students who are applying those. So if we, so as you can see, the little pop-up text here explains what these categories mean if you go over them. So if I go to grammar and style for new and returning academics, okay, so this gives you, and here is where you vote to reserve your seat. Okay, and so the more people who vote here, when people vote, it will move it from being a candidate class to being a confirmed class, and will be definitely happening. I would also add, and this is very important, one question that people often have is like, well, how do I know if I can do the days and times that the classes are scheduled for? Well, you'll notice this class isn't scheduled for any days and times yet, because we don't have students yet. Again, the way that our system works is to not only take student demand into account, but student availability into account too. There are so many people who make the very understandable, because it's true almost everywhere else, but in Signum's case, incorrect assumption that if you live in, say, New Zealand or something like that, there's no way you would possibly be able to attend our classes live. No matter who you are and where you are, we will be taking your, if you vote, if you click on a candidate class like this, like Old Norse heroic Eddic poetry, and you scroll down and you hit vote, your availability is going to be taken into account. So let me show you how you do that. When you've signed up for a BlackBerry account, you have these things up here, which is in your account. Click on time zone and availability. Do this as soon as you sign up for a BlackBerry account, because it will work. This will affect space classes you want to do. This will affect everything you want to do. All you have to do is select your time zone. Where in the world do you live, right? And then go through and click by hours, right? Here's like, all of the hours, all of the 24 hours of the day and all of the days of the week, and just click during which hours are you available to take time, to take a class. And then the system will translate these times into one, single matrix so that we can see that. And we also have this place, and this is very important, where you can add a prose note. And our schedulers really do take this into account and really will focus on that. So, depending on your own availability, like you may live in the Eastern time, but, for some people, like midnight, 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. are really the best times of day in which a class could possibly be taken. I might be speaking personally here. So I would absolutely put that as my availability. Whereas like I can't do, like evening times, which are good for lots of people, are hard for me. And I'm often busy between 10 p.m. and midnight. But I could probably also do the afternoon too, because I'm up by then. So there we go. Between 1 and 4 p.m. and between 12 and 3 a.m. That's my primary availability. So you'd click this and then you'd save it. And again, then that will be automatically factored in and delivered to the schedulers when you vote for a particular module, so that your time is taken into account, and when you shortlist a module.
And I'll just note, there may be times when you may not, the time that you want to do doesn't work with everybody else.
Yeah.
You may have to wait for the second time it's offered, and we're sorry about that. Try to get your friends in your time zone or with similar schedules to sign up if you're having trouble getting a course to make. Yeah. But also our scheduling team is phenomenal, and they really try to work with you. So in Corey's case, the schedule he just filled out, where he's available from midnight to 2 in the morning and 1 to 4 in the afternoon, you might get an email from a scheduler that says, nobody else can quite do your times, but are you possibly available at noon on Tuesdays? Could you get up an hour earlier and come a little bit sooner? And you definitely always say no. Don't feel pressured if that time really doesn't work for you. But sometimes students have a little bit more flexibility. And I would say if you've got a half an hour availability, it's probably worth it to tick the box. So if you're available from 12:30 onward, and that's the kind of thing you could make a note of in that box at the top. I'm not available at noon, but I'm flexible at 12:30.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so walk me through, if I want to apply to the program, how do I do it?
All right, so there's a link on the website, but there's also a link on this page you're on right now if you want to scroll down a couple paragraphs.
Okay.
Just stop. And then there's the purple letters that say apply for admission at the bottom of the last real paragraph.
There we go. Okay.
It will take you to a web form.
There it is. Gotcha.
All right. So I will apologize ahead of time. Web forms don't let you move forward and back if there's a required element. So there's a required element on every page but one. So what I did for people who don't want to get to page 6 and then find out they need to write an essay, you'll see in the first actual paragraph, just below the bullet points, there's a link that says you can consult this PDF to see a list of the more detailed questions.
Right.
So if you click on that, that's a little overview of what's encompassed in our fairly detailed application.
Nice.
So on page 2, there's going to be page 1 is just your email and then reading all the boilerplate. Page 2, personal details, where you live. We tried to be non-invasive with our questions because we don't have to follow state guidelines and track things, but there is information that's sometimes helpful to us for reasons of scheduling, just seeing where our students are coming from, knowing what countries have students who are really interested. So anything you want to fill out that's not required is always lovely and helpful. But all of page 3, which is demographics, is optional. So if you don't want us to know your preferred gender, or you don't want us to know, I would say that there is a question on that page, which is about accessibility. So if you are, for instance, blind or hard of hearing, it would be very helpful if you wanted to tell us that in particular.
Yes.
We don't have a formal accessibility policy for this program, but we want to make the courses accessible to anyone who's able to come. So telling us that would be really helpful.
It's always our goal. Yeah.
As we mentioned before, you're not required to have a college degree to do this. In fact, you don't technically even have to have a high school degree. We're going to take any adult anywhere in the world who would like to join us. But we would like to know your educational history. So if you have a doctorate of engineering, that's still helpful for us to know. If you have a master's in a degree, if you have some other education. So we'll be asking some questions about that. And also, because we're a language and literature program, there's a lot of questions about your language experience. If your first language is not English, it's always useful to know that. If you know multiple languages, it's useful to know that. If you're learning the language, even if it's, casually taken Old Norse in space for 2 years, but I don't think I have any kind of reading fluency, that's useful for us to know as well. So that's just education and language experience. And then page 5 is going to be, what are you actually interested in academically? There's some tick boxes for courses and things you might like to learn. There's a bunch of longer essay questions, and that's one of the reasons I made this PDF, is I thought if you got to page 6 and then you get asked to relate your primary goal, that's probably a question you want to think about
before
for a little bit more than page 6 on the form. So that list of bullets right there is all the questions that you're likely to be asked, or all the questions that the form will ask when you get to page 6 that will help us figure out if you're really a good fit for the program. So you might want to work through those and just think about, what's my goal? What do I want to do? What Signum classes can help me get there? And even questions like the time ones, we've got some flexibility here, but it's nice for us to know what your time frame is. If your goal is go back to the engineer, if you're an engineer and your goal is to write a book on The Hobbit and you want to do it in the next 6 months, that may not be something we can help you accomplish in the next 6 months.
Right.
So in a case like that, one of our members of our admission team would come back to you and say, we don't know that we can help you with this in 6 months. Here's what we can do in 6 months. Or if you were happier to take a 2 or 3 year time frame, here's what we think we'd be able to do in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And then you can use that to decide whether that will really work for you.
Yeah. And again, going back to what I was saying before about the time, the investment of our employee time into each application. The application process here is not a question of, you answering a list of questions and us having a list of check boxes and just, it really is for every individual person looking at, what do these people want? What do we believe is going to be required, and are we able to do that or not? Or if not, are there like counter proposals that we can make, things that we can offer, so it's always the process is very individual. All of our processes for these are very individual.
Matt is asking for the definition of adult. So for legal reasons, our definition of adult starts at the age of 18.
Yeah, 18-year-olds and up. That's basically
18,
because
18 and up.
the only reason we're restricting it to adults is that it's a whole legal can of worms to do this with kids. So that's
And particularly there's some trickiness if you put kids in a classroom with adults. We want to make sure that the
yeah,
children of our Signum community are protected. We would,
yeah,
I think we'd be really open to looking at directions to take this for child students, for under 18s. I mean, you're not,
yes,
17-year-olds are not a child. I think we'd be open to looking at ways to make this work for, say, an advanced homeschooler, but it would take a lot more protections and some systems that we don't have in place. So that's not something we're able to offer right now. But definitely anybody who is over 18 anywhere in the world, maybe say any human who's over 18 anywhere in the world, who has access to a computer, is welcome to come and to take our classes with us.
yeah, yeah. It's it's I do like that caveat. Yeah, it's right. We cannot accommodate even particularly precocious dogs. It's we are at this time only accepting humans. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's
And sorry to the droids as well.
yeah, exactly. Yes. And to alien invaders, we'll take that on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
a lot of this form is really designed to help you think through what you want to get out of the program. So it is a little bit long, it is a little bit unwieldy. There's a part where it says go and look at our grad classes, see which ones of those you'd love to take if you could, or have available to you in this format. And that's because our grad faculty are working to take a lot of our grad lectures and make them available as modules in the academic mastery program. So if we know that you're excited about some of those courses, we can bump those up the list and do them more quickly.
Yeah.
There's also a writing sample, and that's also linked on that PDF. So
Mm-hmm.
we're just asking you for a short paragraph to a specific prompt. And the reason for the writing sample is, again, to kind of help place you in the program. So if your writing sample comes back and we don't think you're quite ready to write an academic monograph, we might say, we really recommend that you take some foundations courses. It seems to us like you probably want to take 5 or 6 courses that have papers. Your papers you can write on topics that are related to your monograph, but going from the only thing I've ever written is an instruction manual for how to run a lawnmower to writing a monograph in a prose style, that's quite a process. And so we want to be able to give you steps that are tailored to your own skills. It's not a if this is a writing sample we'll accept or not. It's a placement writing sample.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And again, it really is, the application evaluation is not about like, are you good enough? It's about what are your goals, where are you starting from, and how, are we going to be able to help you get to where you want to be, and how, so that we not only can know whether or not it's a good idea to begin, but also to have a good idea where to begin so that we can know where to start that conversation.
And I'll add too, like, if you get halfway through the application and you realize we don't have classes that are relevant for you, that's a good reason to walk away. I'm not trying to send people away, but when I was applying to grad schools for myself, I had a safety school, I won't say which one, and the safety school had a list of check boxes that were like, why do you want to come to this institution? And it was like, this is a great location, I love the faculty, I love the classes, I love this. It's about 40 things. It was a whole page of the application was this 2-column list of reasons you want to come, and I did not tick a single box. I mean, it was my safety school. They did not have a box for, I think I can get in here even if I can't get in anywhere else. And I realized at the end of that page, if I can't tick a single box
Right.
on this list, I should not be spending the application fee to apply to this institution, because I would be disappointed if I went.
Right.
And so if you get to that point, if you're looking at our classes and you're like, well, you don't really have faculty who teach this topic, I would say email us and say, I'd love to take a class on this topic. Doesn't look like you have anything. And we can add you to a list of people who get notifications. And at some point, if we add that class, or we add classes in that area, then we'll email you and say, hey, do you want to look at this again now that we have these things that are more relevant to you? So we definitely want to do that, but I don't want to waste your time and money having you apply only for me to then say, actually, we don't have an Agatha Christie expert. Although we probably actually have an Agatha Christie expert. I don't know.
That we could probably do. Yeah. But though again, that's the point. We are we're wanting to respond to student interest. Should we get a large number of people who want to study, like we don't currently have a Russian literature specialist in our faculty that I know of anyway, though I might be surprised, but anyway, like I don't think we have a Russian literature specialist, but should we get a cohort of students who really wants to study Russian literature, I reckon we could find one, so it's we do have the ability to do that, but certainly so that's why it would be good to communicate with us. So where should if people want to reach out to you with questions or inquiries of that kind, where should they email you?
So the email to use for now is mastery, MASTERY, at signumu.org. And I don't know if that's linked anywhere. I will work on making that.
We'll add that.
It's linked in BlackBerry.
Yeah.
I think that's in BlackBerry.
It's in BlackBerry? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So if you just want to click on the link, that's on the very first page in BlackBerry, and I think it's scroll down a little more. There
it is. Yeah. It is.
Yeah, so you can click on that link, and you can send an email. It'll come to me and a team, so it's not just me. I'll also note, I think we make our grad admissions decisions pretty quickly. These are not going to be overnight decisions because a lot of your materials will be getting sent out to multiple people. And especially if you're really excited and you apply today, we're a couple days before Christmas, and many of our faculty are turning their computers off for this week, next week. Yes. So give us a little grace on the time frame if we don't get back to you immediately. We'll try to let you know that your application was received and is complete. And master@signumu.org is also the email address to send your writing sample to, because we can't currently take uploads to the Google form. So you'll fill out the Google form, and then you can send your writing sample to us. And also, if there's something else you've written that you think would be relevant, let's say you have written an academic article and you want us to consider that, you can add that as an attachment as well. It's not required. The writing sample is, but any supplements you want to send are not required. We're not asking for transcripts or anything like that, because we're just evaluating you on your project and whether we think that we can help you achieve the goal that you stated.
Yeah. Awesome. So, okay. So again, the place to go. So on this academic mastery program, the Welcome to the AM program page, if people scroll down, this list here for February are the candidates that were ready to roll in February. And if they don't see things here, then they can look down at the longer list down at the bottom of all of our.
Yep. And up at the top where I've defined the tiers, there's also, if you want to see all the tier 1 courses, there's a list of just tier 1.
Right.
If you want to see all the tier 2 content courses, you can see just those.
Okay, great.
And then we're going to be adding tags for language and literature as well. If you're a particularly into, we only have Old Norse in here right now. Old English is coming soon. Latin is coming soon. Yeah. A lot more literature courses are coming. Some of them are probably days away from showing up. So this page is going to be growing pretty substantially over the next month or so. The other comment I'll make about February is we may not be starting February 1st.
Right.
So we're going to give our instructors a little bit of time to get stuff together, and we'll have to have some time to schedule. But we may very well be starting mid-month for several of our modules. And because our modules are 5 months, that means if we start around February 15th, you'll be finishing around March 20th. Then you can pick up an April module and keep going in that kind of fashion.
Right. And as you said, there's an application fee, right?
The application fee is one Signum token, and if you don't have a BlackBerry account yet, sign up for one and you'll get a coupon for a $75 token. But that also includes, there will be a triannual fee. So every 4 months, about in line with a semester in our other programs. Every 4 months, we'll be charging you an advising, library, and mentorship fee. Your advisor is going to help keep you on track towards your plan and make sure that you're staying active and you're progressing in the way you want to be progressing. Your mentor is going to give you some more specific academic advice. So if there are things like conferences that they think you should join, or if there are specific questions you have about, say, publishing in the humanities, that an advisor with advising skills, which tend to be more list focused and structured, your mentor might be able to help you decide whether to apply for a conference or decide whether to take a research trip to a particular library or things like that. So the mentors will be subject specific.
And these are the folks who will also be helping to sort of shape the program. This is what the courses that you should be taking, and this is a sequence you might want to think about, and you might want to, take some of those space modules over there also, and whatever. So they'll be the ones who will be not only working with you to shape your program, but also keeping up with you as you work through it, and helping you to reconsider and reevaluate and everything as you go through.
And also looking at some of the feedback you get from instructors. So if your instructor says it looks like you really need to read more academic articles, a mentor is a great person to say, I don't even know how to find more academic articles. And your mentor can kind of help you navigate things. And then the other thing that fee will include will be library access, which is something somebody was asking about earlier. So that's a thrice yearly fee, which will just be assessed at regular intervals, but we're going to roll that into the application fee for first-time applicants. So if you apply and you pay the application fee, then basically your first 4 months advising, library, and mentorship fee is on us. And the triennial fee is also token-based.
It is, yeah, exactly, yeah. So it'll just be, basically it means that a token will be deducted from your BlackBerry account once every 4 months. Yeah, to cover all of that individual advising and work. Yeah.
For as long as well as your library an active access. Student. So again, if
you take a leave of absence, you're not going to be available. Yeah.
You can't do anything in the fall because you're a school teacher, and that's the crazy time of the school year. I've been a school teacher, I know. So you just say, I don't want to do anything this fall. We won't deduct the token. You won't be really engaging with your advisor or your mentor or using the library services. So there's no additional fee. And then when you're ready to come back, you'll let us know. We'll start the token up again and you'll jump back into classes.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So what people should focus on right now is they should focus on looking at the website and the FAQ page to make sure that any questions that can be answered here, they should make sure that they're signed up for BlackBerry and have their availability registered.
I would say sign up for BlackBerry, set your availability, go crazy with your wish list.
Yeah.
Because the wish list is a really nice feature because you can see what you've tagged. So if you're going through BlackBerry and you've tagged 40 modules in space and in academic mastery, that's a really good sign. That means that shows me that we have things we can offer you.
Yeah.
If you go through and you're trying to click stuff for the wish list and you're like, boy, I don't like any of these classes, that maybe wait a little bit before you apply. Maybe come back and look at this in 4 months and see if we've added new courses that are really exciting to you.
Right. And again, feel free to reach out by email to get a clearer sense of where we're headed and let us know the kinds of things that you would want.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so they'll want
BlackBerry, time zone, wish list. And if your wish list is looking great, the next thing you need is a goal. And remember that goal can be really specific. I want to write this paper that I've been burning to write for years. But it can also be really general. I just want to take a bunch of classes on Tolkien, and I'd like to be evaluated more stringently than I have been in my space classes.
Right. Exactly. And then people should be looking through the application details so they have a sense of what the application is, and
Yep.
then get ready to submit an application.
Yep. And I'll also say, if you're not quite ready to sign up right now, and probably everybody who's on this call right now has already done this because somehow you learned about this presentation. But at the bottom of the academic mastery page, there is a place to sign up for our mailing list. I believe that's the big Signum mailing list. So you'll get some stuff about space and the master's program as well. But also, if you're not quite ready to apply right now, that's a great way to make sure you stay in touch and can find out more that's going on.
For sure, yeah. That is, I saw that at the bottom of the webpage, join our mailing list. Yep. Awesome. Very good. Well, we are very excited about getting this program off the ground. Eric was mentioning on YouTube about, saying that Signum is the most student-focused and student-oriented organization he's ever encountered, and it really has been the goal from the beginning. I mean, Signum was born out of a desire to meet expressed needs from students to take classes. That's always been what we've been about. We don't, have a system that we're trying to push. It's not about, it's always been about trying to help people meet their own learning goals. And so I am so excited. I know this is something, Faith, you've done such wonderful work, and I know Rob Gosselin has been doing a lot. Rob and James, the BlackBerry team, have been an enormous help in integrating the academic mastery options within the BlackBerry system, and I think that's going to be it's going to be really wonderful to see that continue to grow. So thanks to everybody. The main thing as we get started here, if you have any doubts or uncertainties, or you're not sure, reach out to us. Like we are very happy to communicate with folks. I know that one of the dangers of trying to make things flexible and personalized is that it can be confusing, right? Rigid systems are easy to explain and easy to understand, often hard to work with, but easy to understand and easy to explain. And it's a struggle I've often had when I want to make things more flexible, but that seems to make it more complicated, and it can be harder. So if any of these things seem overwhelming or uncertain, or you don't know how to move forward, reach out and we will help you as best we can.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Faith. This has been fantastic. I am just delighted, as I say, to see this get off the ground. And I know there are a number of people, several of whom I have seen here today in the chat already, who have just been counting down the days until this opportunity was available. So I'm excited to see people jump into things. So thank you so much, Faith, and everybody else. So mastery@signumu.org is the email address people should reach out to. Very good.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Corey.
Thanks, everybody, and we will see everybody around soon. And if I don't see you, happy holidays to everybody, and we'll see you guys soon. Oh, and don't forget, next weekend on the 28th is going to be the campaign ending webathon. We're going to have a big feature on the really exciting new stuff that's happening in our collaboratory and the new Signum storefront that we're launching. And I'm going to be doing the State of the University address and all kinds of that sort of stuff. So that'll be next Saturday, the 28th, at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. See you again soon. Bye.